Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today is week 30 of building Hogwarts in LEGO. Now, last week, if you watched that episode, you'll know that we were focusing on the Great Hall and the boathouse over there. You guys can see the progress that we got done and finally able to get a little bit of water and focus on that area. It's been a long time coming. Another thing that is a long time coming is, of course, the astronomy tower. We built this way back when, in some of the earlier weeks of building Hogwarts, somewhere around week 6-ish. And apart from the frame, the skeleton, if you will, there is zero interior. In fact, if I were to come around, it's not even hooked down into the mock. It's just sort of sitting there all delicate. Now, this has gone through 2 renditions. The first one was alright, but I didn't quite like it, so I decided to redo it mainly to introduce this facade over here. And if I come around, also to do this bit, which is quite a highlight feature of this bit of the building. Now, we need to fill the interior of this with quite a few things. Namely, I want to make these floors over here the series of challenges from the Philosopher's Stone. So starting with Fluffy, Room of the Winged Keys, Chessboard, and the last scene with the Mirror of Erised. Now that's going to be quite a tall task. Of course, we don't have that much space, but I'm trying to use the height to my advantage and somehow get some sort of trap door system that goes down, 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 and it almost might open dollhouse style so that we can see into into all of those scenes, and you can also see the floor levels as well. Up above on this upper floor over here, where this last row of windows is, I would love to make that the Ravenclaw common room. We've now got, where is it? I guess it's right there. That's the Gryffindor common room. We've got the Slytherin common room right under here, and Hufflepuff common room down there. Ravenclaw common room is going in this building. That will complete the set. And then of course in this top floor, as you can see, it is well, still needing some work, but that is hopefully going to be the astronomy class and just a general viewing platform up there that we'll have to finish off with a bit of an interior. So I don't want to exactly say that this is going to be version 3.0 of the astronomy tower, because I don't intend to change how it looks at all. I merely want to give it an interior and find a way to open the walls up so that we can see into that. So without further ado, let's get started with this week's progress. So, as a way to get us started this week, I thought I would bring out any relevant set to building the Philosopher's Stone challenges in here. 3 of these are from the original Harry Potter releases in 2000-2001, apart from this, which is the chessboard. So we've got Fluffy's Encounter, we've got the Room of the Winged Keys, and we've got the meeting with Quirrell. I'm not exactly sure the actual name. We're going to build these, and we're going to take a look, and hopefully we will get some inspiration from them, and then undoubtedly we will be tearing them apart and using the parts as best as we can in the astronomy tower. Let's get started. Well, here it is in all its glory, Fluffy's Encounter. It has been built for about a week and a half now, and it's been just sitting on this table ever since. But as of yesterday, I am completely done with university work, and I am home free to work on LEGO and give it 100% focus, which I've been dying to do. I've been coming home every night and really wanting to work on LEGO, but instead have to pop open a book or something else and study. And that's no fun. But here's Fluffy's Encounter. Now, it's not the most amazing set, as you'll imagine. It's from 2001, but it does have a little bit of merit. You know, it's just something to sort of get me in the mood, if nothing else. The one very cool thing about it, of course, is this sort of molded, fluffy head. Of course, the newer version might look a little bit more accurate, but it is all just brick built. There's something a little bit more fun about this one. As for the other sets, I decided that I actually don't need to build them at this moment because we are kind of pressed for time, and I would rather get progress on the actual mock than building sets that are 25 years old and don't look that amazing to begin with. So here is the front of the instructions of the Room of the Winged Keys. You can imagine what the Mirror of Erised looks like. In fact, LEGO has made quite a few of those over the years, and I will probably be using one of the newer ones. Also, I would just like to mention that if the audio quality is sounding a little bit bad right now, it's because I've somehow misplaced my microphone in the past 2 weeks, and until I find it, we're just going to have to make do. So hopefully this is clear enough for you all. In any case, we of course have the astronomy tower right here in front of me, and I would really like to just get started on this. I think the way we're going to approach it is to actually work backwards and that's by starting at the bottom with the final challenge and sort of working our way up, and that will inform where Fluffy's encounter, where the trap door is, where the devil's snare is. So the only way to do that is work backwards, and we'll just see how this form starts taking shape. Now, I did say a week and a half ago that I would like to make it dollhouse style. Now, I'll have to figure out how exactly that works, because it's not complicated, but it is a little bit of faff to have to redo that. I will see if there's any other solution to that as well, but we're just going to get a little bit creative here. And even better news, I have found a microphone. It was sitting on the kitchen table. Anyhow, we're moving on. Okay, so I have delicately placed the astronomy tower right here so that nothing could possibly happen to it or, tip off the table. And in doing so, I have now exposed the bottom floor, which I have not seen in quite a while. Now, the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this, in terms of how we can transform this into that final challenge scene, is, well, two problems, actually, is that we've got two doorways, one here and one here, because, of course, when I first designed this, I thought it was going to be used as something useful, and not something that happens deep in the dungeon somewhere. Now, how can I use these two doorways? Now, technically, I could just close it. Well, I can't reach my finger into the door, but if I did, I would close that door and then we just pretend it's not there. We could do that, but I actually think it's smarter if maybe we figure out a way to use this floor for something else, and then we start the Philosopher's Stone challenges on top of that. Actually, we're just going to ditch the idea. So for argument's sake, we're just going to have a doorway that leads to nothing. And I think I'm just going to replace that archway right there and make it a solid wall. That will be a hallway, yes, that leads to a solid wall, but maybe I'll put a painting on it or something. And I think this is more just for exterior aesthetic to connect the two buildings rather than actually functioning. Here is what it would look like. I mean, obviously very basically, if there was a mirror of Erised and a scene here, so you can see how that sort of fills up the space. Now, this isn't my favorite version of the mirror. There is another one that's slightly smaller that I would like to use in its place, but this one does have some cool sort of mirror graphic thingies, so I might use it just because it's big. Now, I have been just watching the original Harry Potter movie, The Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone, I guess, and it's a very basic scene. It's just got some sort of arches around the perimeter of it, and it's curved around the back, and then there's a bunch of steps that go like this all the way down, and there's sort of just a narrow platform in the middle. So for the sake of how we might be doing this, I watched the movies and there are quite a lot of steps that lead down into this scene. I don't know where I'll be able to put the steps, but we will definitely have this scene. In the one above it, I think we're going to just put a nice big chessboard because we have the height and the size in this area right here. And then from the chessboard, right in this section, I'm thinking the Room of the Winged Keys, which means that Devil's Snare will probably fit somewhere just right here, sort of like a skinny portion that you fall down from Fluffy's encounter. You're at the Devil's Snare, you walk into the Room of the Winged Keys, and then, I know it is a door, but it will just be a drop down into the, right here, into the chessboard, or maybe I'll pretend that there's a doorway into this space and that's where all the circulation is, and then, yeah. So it'll be more dollhouse style in the fact that you can't actually get between the floors very easily, but there will be layers in terms of showing what all the floors do. I'm going to start by ripping off this side wall and figuring out a way to hinge it open, just similarly to what we did with the Great Hall, and I forget if I've done it with any other buildings. I was thinking of doing something like this, where I can just peel off the back, but I think it would look nicer for this if it just hinges. So I'll get back to you once we have some progress done. Okay guys, so things have got drastic. I just tore it all apart. For good reason. The first one is I've always had a very big problem with how this ground floor has been laid out. I really like this bit. I kind of like this, but I always hated this bit because for some weird reason I decided not to make it symmetrical. And that's probably just because I didn't have space on this side to replicate what I was doing over here. But it meant that whenever I looked at it, there was stuff going on here that wasn't going on this side. And it threw off the entire building because everything else, kind of, is symmetrical. So I've torn it apart so that I can make it impressive. And in doing so, I'm going to remove this entrance, I think. And as you can see here, I also removed this one. So what I've done here is taken away the little hallway in between, and I'm instead just going to have a door straight to the exterior from this building. And what I'll be able to do is just make a pretty impressive looking exit right here. It's obviously not the most important one. It is kind of half hidden behind the building, but it makes a little bit more sense that you can just walk out of this building and into the courtyard as opposed to walking through the astronomy tower to get into here. It then means that I can fiddle with this and reshape a little bit about how the courtyard works, maybe make it a little bit more aesthetic. I was looking at some of the other doors around the castle. Obviously most of them are kind of unfinished with the details, but everything is either inset with arches or it's outset with arches. As you can see, if I come around all the way to the back, like this one over here. So this is the same sort of vibe that I'm trying to do in this building right here. Oh, and also thank you for the comment from the one person that said that I should close my windows because I'm going to essentially bleach all of my bricks. I am kind of aware of that, but also I love the sun. So maybe I'll just close the windows when I'm not here. But thanks for the tip. No, it genuinely is a pressing problem. He basically just said because my windows are constantly open, my bricks are getting yellow if I'm not paying close enough attention. Anyhow, so back over here, I'm going to remove this entrance, I've removed that entrance, and I'm basically going to reshape this whole ground floor, and I might actually retouch what's going on here. I was trying to design the Philosopher's Stone challenges within this existing building, but that was just getting a little bit too complicated. I'm like, why am I doing that to myself? I built the astronomy tower, I can unbuild it, you know, it's not set in stone. I mean, Hogwarts can use a little remodeling from time to time. So in doing this, because we have no entrances in and out, that means that I can use more of the space over here to actually make an entrance, a stairway, something that actually leads down into this space from the rooms above. Obviously we have to be aware that there is this curved facade right here, which is sitting right there. Now before I used to just have a 8x16 plate where you guys can obviously see where the where that arch would go, curved wall would go. Now what that means to me is I'm thinking because there's a curve there and there's a curve in the final challenge, it would actually make sense to do the curve on this side, put the mirror over here, kind of like that. And then we face this way, so when you open up however much of the wall, we're looking that way. And then right here, there's a stairwell going up to the floor above. I'll have to work out how I do that. And then right above, of course, will be the chessboard, and the same thing going on in this space over here. There is also the complete possibility that I just don't have a staircase at all based on space, so we'll see how we get on with that. And of course, we're actually going to be working on the exterior, making it look a lot better. Alright, so here's what I'm thinking for the floor. I've just decided to use a snot technique similar to what I did in the Chamber of Secrets to create that sort of arched opening, and so it looks like you step down to the Mirror of Erised. It also makes pretty good use of the fact that the floor heights are different here anyway, so what I'm going to do is just tile this off, put a few studs so people can stand on them, and then I will tile off this top bit. So you're kind of looking at it from this angle, and it does look pretty similar to what we have in the movie. In terms of what I'm going to be doing on this side, I actually had a look online to try to figure out what the base of the astronomy tower looks like, and to be fair, this is technically my third time of rebuilding it. I've never been satisfied with it. I think what I'm going to do is try to just actually pull up some rock work into here and make it look like, well, just the mountain is a little bit higher on this end, so it ties in a little bit with what we've got, all the rock work going on over there. And I might do something similar on this side. It might look a little bit weird that there's just randomly a rock face inside this courtyard, but if I integrate it well enough, I think it will look alright, because a big part of what makes this bit so, well, in my opinion, so impressive, and especially this area back here, is that there is a significant amount of rock interspersed throughout the green spaces, where you kind of come over here and then all of a sudden it's just flat ground. And, well, to an extent over here, I mean, there is some terrain changes and stuff, but it is just very flat. So this is my way of trying to slowly bring it back into it. And it also helps me mask this side of the building, which is going to be rather dull and just a flat wall anyway. And I'm running low on tan bricks, so it's all just, you know, helping each other out. Because obviously there's no wall here at all, I get to completely redesign in terms of how it opens. I'm thinking of putting the hinge on this side, and then we can just similarly do it as we go further and further up the building, because it'll be a little bit difficult to put a hinge on this side over here. But so far so good. We're going to continue working on this bit. We're going to, essentially this is going to be a room that focuses purely on the interior, and the exterior is going to be masked by rock, so we're going to be using the majority of the pieces. These that I stole from all the doorways I knocked down, hopefully going to kind of make some sort of pattern on the walls, just a little bit of detailing to an otherwise flat room. And so just a little while later, we have got the bones of this sort of final chamber in place. It's actually looking really, really good. Now, you might notice that the steps are actually quite tall. They are one brick apart. Now, that is more than I normally would do. However, I am trying to gradually increase the height of this room so that I don't have to do such a big stairwell at the end to connect the different floors. So already we've got like a 4 brick gap right here, which is looking really, really good. Now, in terms of the aesthetic, I'm kind of going for a very just simple and sleek design. It's quite reflective, I think, of what you can see in the movie. There's not too much detail. It's really just a very smooth floor with some arches along the walls, and everything is just about the scene that happens in the middle. And I think we're capturing that quite nicely. I'll just come around the other side so you guys can see what that looks like. So the idea is kind of look through and you can see down into the Mirror of Erised there, down the steps. This was looking, this little arch thing right here in the middle. I've been making pretty good use of these tiles, which I bought a very long time ago when I was doing my Erebor mock. They're huge, and you don't get to use them too often, but I am using them here, and I'm quite liking how they look. As for what happens beyond this doorway, I'm just planning on making a very small just tiled section of flat ground, and then probably the stairway going up that way. Now normally they would go this way, but just to make the best use of this space, they're going to go up that way, and well, in theory there would be a door on the upper level for the chessboard, and we'll have to figure out how that looks like once we get to it. We're going to now start with the walls over on this side, and pretty much build up everything except for this wall over here, and then we're going to start determining what that's going to look like. And of course we're going to have to build on the rockwork as well, so this one is going to be pretty much as boring can get, but we'll try to put some detail where possible. Okay, so apart from this little bit of rockwork that you see here on the front, I was just experimenting with how I can cover up that wall, just try to tie it in to that area of the mock over there. The main thing that we've been getting done is this wall over here, and it's hinging open. So it's just very, very simple. There's just a hinge there. The only problem is because, of course, where the that little circular bit is, I can't put a full brick right there, so there is a little bit of a gap, but I'm okay with that. In terms of the design, I decided to take a look at this bit of the wall, and before it kind of just cut off and went flat, and I decided that that didn't look good, so I'm going to carry down essentially these columns, if you will, right in the middle, all the way down to the ground, and we'll see if we even put windows here. I might do, simply because I don't want to use too many tan bricks where I don't have to, and I've got a decent bit of windows left, but that's looking pretty decent. And then we're just going to build up this wall, and when you open it you'll be able to see right in. The one problem that I am currently worried about is that there is a set spacing in between each of these slopes on this far wall over here, and by building up the interior of this room, I think I've made it substantially bigger than it was before. So I might have to do a little bit of modification to this bottom section over here, just so that it doesn't look out of proportion. But so far so good. I think this facade is looking a lot better than it was before. We're just going to, of course, build that hallway there. I'm thinking in terms of what we could put on the walls and such, so it isn't too dull, we're going to put some just torch brackets, and I might do a few arches here and there. I'll experiment with that, and that'll pretty much be it for this. And we're going to try to get this level done pretty quickly so we can get started on the ones above, because we've not got a lot of time to finish this mock, and we've got an entire astronomy tower, and that's not even including the rest of the mock. Alright, so here we are, the bottom floor of the astronomy tower, pretty much complete. And I quite like how you can't even tell that this wall is hinged, except for, you know, the very small indications right there, but for the most part it looks very sleek. And you pull it open, there's some torches on the wall, and this is sort of view that you'll get into this space. So here's the newly formed staircase at the back. It adheres to pretty much no regulations at all. It would probably kill you if you fell down them, but that's alright. We got Harry with the Philosopher's Stone and Quirrell, just set up a very simple scene here, and we've got some torches on the back wall as well. Overall, like I said, a very simple build, nothing too complicated, but it fills the space, and it is the first step to getting this astronomy tower done. If I close it up, and I've just got a few plates. You know, this is essentially what it would look like once I cover it up. We're looking at something like this. I can open it up using this. This is sort of actually what the view would be like. So not terribly tall, but it does work, especially on this upper level. I was afraid that it would be a bit too short. And then all the other floors on top, we have space for the stairwell, kind of. I had it sort of turn around the corner, but that would be covered. I might have to alter that just ever so slightly, but we'll see if it even lines up at all with what's going to go on onto the upper floors. But we're going to plate this off, and the rest of the castle, thankfully, is not going to get altered in the same way this was completely demolished. So the bones of that will stay exactly the same. I'm hoping that I can just sort of delicately chop off and then work my way up like that. So we'll basically do a cutoff pretty much around right there, and we'll work with that. We'll slap it on top of this, and we'll call that the second floor. We'll start putting the chessboard and such in there. So the tower has been successfully chopped in two. We've got the other floors ready to be sectioned off as we get to them. Now, just as a little recap, this floor that we're about to start on is hopefully going to be the chessboard, and then the floor above is going to be the room of the winged keys, and in some way also the devil's snare. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that at the moment. And then this floor is going to be Fluffy's encounter with the trapdoor that drops down, and this top floor right here will be the Ravenclaw common room. So quite a lot to get through. We've one of 5. We're making good time. In any case, here's what the building looks like. Now back on top, you can see it. We have to sort of fill in this little bit over here. In terms of going on to the inside, it actually does look quite cool. Being able to see in here, I actually quite like the idea of being able to use the curvature of the astronomy tower in some way. So there's the staircase in the back over there. I'm sort of contemplating on how exactly I'm going to do this now. Obviously, the probably the easiest way would just to be to continue this wall up to here. It's almost lined up. This one is just one to the right of that wall down there, but that would section it off, and that would designate this area just for a stairwell, and then this would be for the chessboard. The only problem is this side is the bit that I want to open, and I don't want to designate about half of that just to a staircase, and then just a teeny bit to get a sneak peek into the chess room. So I'm probably just going to sort of section this off in some way, or leave it just completely exposed and build the chessboard around it. So I'm just going to have to play around a little bit to see how it gets started, but we're going to have to do a base. We're going to have to connect this all in. You can see that this is currently floating because the platform that it used to be on accounted for 1 brick's height, which is why you can see 1 brick is missing. But because now the entire base is plated off, this is going to have to be altered ever so slightly. But that's just some details that I wanted to share. In any case, going to figure this out, show you guys how we progress from here. Alright, so the solution that I've come up with is pretty similar to what I had before, although I've altered it ever so slightly. Instead of using pretty jarring dark gray tiles on top of dark tan, I've gone for an all tan look, and I've just put these 2 cones in the corner to sort of finish it off, if you will. I mean, it's a very small detail, but otherwise it would have been just a flat area over there. In terms of what I've done on the inside, I've plated it off. It is not entirely secure. Those bricks are really holding that bit over in the corner. This all comes off in one piece. At the moment it will be hooked in, but this area over here, if I just take this bit off, this is currently just sort of floating because if you remember, there's under here, so the only way this is being held on is by that one stud in the corner. So as I basically integrate this into this platform, I'm going to have to make sure to build walls and such into the outer walls to keep all of the ground secure over here. I'm going to have to, next up, just essentially very carefully take apart this wall and hinge it open the same way I do this, but instead of doing the interior first, I'm going to do essentially the shell, and then we'll work with what we have left over because well, we're slightly inhibited by the curve of this building, so I want to make sure that this works before I do any building in here. So I thought I was on a good track over here. I already opened up the wall, and you can see the little hinge that I had started up over here. And then I realized that this entire piece is actually, it's a big archway, and that archway lands right there, which is one brick behind where I put the hinge. And I can't really move that piece any further back because there's a slope in the way. So I think the only solution is I'm going to have to make the gap in between the two slopes as opposed to 4 bricks as it is now. I'm going to have to make it 5, and then I'm going to have to do similarly to this bit over here. So everything is basically just going to be stretched ever so slightly, but hopefully that means that I can now push the hinge back and I'll be able to open up this whole thing. So it will start here, and I'm thinking of just ending it right on this bit right here as opposed to continuing, and that way there's enough strength in this back bit that it won't cause any structural issues. And then essentially, for all intents and purposes, this is your view into the space. So actually you don't get the best view, especially if there's a wall right here. I'll put my hand in the way. That's basically what you're seeing. You can't really see into that side. That might be an issue, but we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. So suffice to say, this has been more of a challenge than I thought it would originally be. I've essentially chopped off this front bit. Here's the windows, and here's a sort of arch bit that I have left over. And this is what I have at the moment. Now, this is what it will look like. That's good. I've had to do a little bit of stealing parts from other places, simply because I don't have any more of these sort of 1x1 round bricks and the 1x2 regular bricks. But we've got the opening, I've got the original hinge now that I've moved it back in one, so it should hopefully line up. I've got to do a bit of modification here. The difficult bit is going to be once I get to the top up here, because suddenly it starts having a depth to it and everything sort of gets interconnected. So this roof right here is hanging its weight on this wall, but if this wall is, well, openable, then I've got to figure out a better way to tie in this, and hopefully that'll mean I'll be able to jut something across right here, but that would mean that the windows, well, that would mean that this whole panel would kind of be split in half, and I would like to open this thing entirely as such. So it'll be a little bit tricky, but I am liking how it's looking so far, especially when you come back to this back side, which is not supposed to be well, the main facade of this building, but it looks a lot better than it did before. It's just cleaner in a way. I think I was overcomplicating it before. I will try to step here and show you. This is how it's looking at the moment. So you can see how I've made that section. Oh, that section was always 5 bricks. It used to be 4 and 4. Now that's 5. It's looking a little bit tall, but maybe I'll end up making that 5, and maybe I will leave it because it's not extremely noticeable. And we're looking pretty good with this wall opened here. We can get a peek into the room as such. So I'm just going to keep building, and we're going to hopefully finish off this wall in some sort of neat manner, and then we'll dive onto the inside. So we've actually got some pretty good news. It is working. We have now got the panel back in place, and carrying those columns or pilasters all the way down to the base. Looks a little bit weird that I don't have windows down there, so that might be something that I go back and change if I have time, because I do think it would look good with them, but I do quite like how it looks just carrying them all down as opposed to before when we had that solid wall. Another thing that's changed is, of course, while this opens this way, we've had a little bit of a switch up, and this one now opens that way. And the only reason is because it was getting really complicated over on this wall due to the slopes, and also I forgot because this goes too wide, so the original hinge was on the inside, which basically just meant that it wouldn't open because it was 2 bricks thick. So to fix that, I just reworked it, put it on the other side. I have had to stack some of these hinge plates on top of each other just simply because I ran out of 1x2 plates to put on either side of it. So now we have a very, very secure hinge system in place, and just underneath this lip over here I've had to put some tiles, which is not the best because I would like it to be flush, tiles all on one level, but that is what I need to do in order for it to fit right there. I'm now back up to the roof line, which is right here. This sits essentially like such. As you can see, it hooks down onto this wall, so I'm just going to have to figure out how to hook it up into here instead, which is, it's going to be a little bit flimsy, but we're going to have to live with that because I do think it looks quite nice. The other advantage of it opening this way is we can actually get a much better view into the room like this. So we're just going to keep building as we are, but the good news is everything is working out, and all the upper floors from now on should be a lot easier because they are just flat walls as opposed to all of this going on here. So it's a few hours later, and I've somewhat figured out how I'm going to finish off this room, and you can already see the start of a new floor over here. It's just very basically done. I wanted to use a 16 by 16 plate simply because it is easy to use, and well, it's just not overly going to complicate anything. The one thing that you will notice, of course, is that there is a gap here on this side, but I've decided to actually leave that as is, and we can almost just imagine that it is a way to get down to the floor below. The reason for that is just it's a little bit too complicated to be filling in that space, and I don't think you're even going to see it with what we do. I'll take this off for a second just to show you what's going on underneath here. We finished off this wall. Everything about this outer shell of this floor is done. This panel opens up, and of course the bottom floor panel also does. One thing though is that this wall, or this whole face, is obviously now pretty much completely unsupported because the panels are completely open. So it's a little bit, you know, wiggly, especially this wall over here, because this is all curved and there's really only one brick where it's just completely flat. There's not enough structure here to stop this from doing that, so I'm just gonna have to be a little bit careful about that, and that will carry on throughout all the floors. But in any case, this is what this floor is looking like. I was able to tie this roof back in just by, let me try to get underneath, just by using some 6 wide plates all the way across, and they're just hooking on to the underside of this. Now they are of course just hanging, so if I put too much pressure it will just snap off. So they're hooked on this side but not here. So everything is really a little bit hodgepodge, but it does look nice when it's closed, and of course it will all open up. We've now got this space to deal with in terms of the chessboard. Now we won't be able to fit an entire chessboard in here. That would be a little bit insane, but given the view that we have here, and that you can see all the way to the edge there, I'm going to make as much use of this space over here for the chessboard, and I might just have some pieces or something going on in this corner to fill the space. We'll have some sort of a miniature chessboard, I think. I'll use some just 2x2 tiles, or I might, well, I'll experiment and I'll get back to you on that. In any case, the idea is that these two bottom floors are probably the only two fully fledged ones that have an actual connection between the two, and the rest of the floors will just continue sort of dollhouse style, except for Fluffy's encounter, which will have a trapdoor. Alright, so with the roof just back in place temporarily, I have quickly set up a scene on the inside of what I'm thinking of doing. Now, my initial idea was actually not to do a big grid like this. It was actually just to use 2x2 tiles, and I did experiment with that and I took it apart. And I didn't like it because the chess pieces itself from the board game, of course, the chess set, were just too big to fit comfortably. And while this obviously is not a full-size chessboard, nor does it look it, I think it gives the impression of the Wizard's chess game a lot better because it's just very big and well, in proportion to humans, it's a lot bigger is what I'm trying to say. So while this isn't the full size, I think this captures the essence of the space a little bit better. We do have quite a lot of room to work with over here, more than I was expecting, in fact. So I will just kind of be tiling that off and doing something a little bit interesting on the floor. And then of course we've got this huge expansive wall on the back, which I think would look nice if we put some banners and other things on the wall. I'll have a quick look at the actual scene from the movie and see what I'm missing. But in terms of how this room works, it's quite a simple floor. We'll just have to put a railing probably around that stairwell, and then that will be the Wizard's chess. It'll be more about scene making rather than the actual room itself. That's pretty much going to be the story for most of these rooms. They're empty chambers with things in them. Alright, so here we have it, the completed challenge for the chessboard, and just go ahead and open this panel out this way. Now it does lean a bit, of course, because there's not too much support going on over here, and of the ground floor opens up the other way. But then you get a view right into here. Now, of course, you saw what the chessboard looked like a little bit earlier. It was just tiles, and all I've done is taken some light gray tiles all around, finished off the flooring, put some of these little torch pieces to light up the floorboard, and in this space over by the stairwell, we've covered up with some broken chess pieces, and of course there's the stairway leading down, and a banner on the wall to bring a little bit of interest. And while this doesn't exactly improve the stability of this door, it does help. We've gone ahead and built the floor above it. Now this is by far the smallest and probably the most simple of all of the floors, and we've got just a little handle right here that I've incorporated in order to open it up. It is at the same point right here as this wall, and hopefully all the floors above that will be as well. And of course there's nothing in it at the moment, but this is going to be hopefully a space for the Devil's Snare and the Room of the Winged Keys. Now obviously it's a lot smaller than the floors above, which might make you think, why isn't all of this the Room of the Winged Keys? And I think it's just because it's not the most interesting of rooms. So we've got that, and we've got a trapdoor above, which will eventually be the room that Fluffy is in. And this is just a little bit of a look at what this space is turning out to be. The astronomy tower from the side looking a bit like a dollhouse. So today's video we were able to get the final challenge, a little bit of a stairwell and the chessboard done, and even though it's a bit counterintuitive, next week we'll be focusing on the Devil's Snare, the Room of the Winged Keys, and Fluffy's encounter. But that is all for this week. If you enjoyed watching, please consider giving this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. It would really help out. And I will see you all in week 31, where we finish the rest of the astronomy tower. Bye guys.